Well, hello there. I'm Harsh, and Karen has asked me to say Worcestershire sauce. There you go, Karen. Anyway, straight into the meat and potatoes. Little bit of a side note. This is the third attempt at recording this video. Yes, that's right. Not everything always goes as perfect as it should. But what are we talking about? We're going to have a little bit of a rant today, and I do apologise. So there'll be one video. It'll be a little bit longer than usual. We're going to speak about Ashley Banfield and her everlasting list of inside people. We're going to talk about Dylan Mortensen and one last look at what happened on the night of this crime. We're going to look at the character assassination of Bryan Kohberger and the inability to speak about the many negative things surrounding the victims and the survivors of this case. So where do we start? Let's start with Ashley Banfield and her everlasting list of inside witnesses and people who can tell her special things. And look, the latest is about Bryan Kohberger being sacked from his job, a job that he needed to complete his PhD. So from the outside, you would think, oh my God, he's been sacked and this is going to affect his ability to obtain his PhD. And this was the straw that broke the camel's back. People have said, Jesus, if he has been fired, then he was obviously a pain. This is, escalated to this point where they've had to get rid of him. Might be true. Who knows? It might be true that he got fired or the contract was revoked after his involvement in this case, and the fact that perhaps they just didn't want to be involved in that and be connected to that. Who knows? I would imagine that any business in the same situation would have reacted the same. Is it just that his contract just wasn't renewed? Was there funding issues? Was there anything else? Who knows? And the fact is, we don't know, because that report just didn't really give you the details that you needed to 100% verify that it was in fact factual or relevant in any way, shape or form. In the UK, in terms of getting rid of people, there's a lot more process to go through, if you like. There is a chain of command. There is a disciplinary procedure, if that's why there is a termination there, that has to be followed. And who knows, maybe that is part of that process. It would appear that Bryan certainly wasn't there if he was indeed sacked sort of earlier, but again, who knows? But what I'm getting at is that this then takes us into what we talk about when we mention character assassination. And I don't use that term lightly, because ultimately Bryan Kohberger could have done this crime. He very much could be the guy. And at the moment, there is nobody else in the crosshairs. This is the guy who's been pinned for it. And albeit the information that we have, it seems full of holes. Would that be fair? Would that be fair to say? Does it seem full of holes? The white Elantra, there's an abundance of Elantras, and we kind of don't 100% know whether there is two or more, or his car was indeed the one that was seen. Who knows? Again, who knows? But there is an abundance of people trying to assassinate his character, but when you look at how they're doing it, they are failing miserably by doing it. I've touched on numerous stories that have come out earlier about people who have come forward, like the Tinder swipe left girl, and the fact that she was talking about, he'd tried to tickle her and things like that. And I don't see anything nefarious in that. I just see someone who was inexperienced with the ladies and had tried to get touchy-feely. He was perhaps a little bit immature with it, but I don't see anything nefarious about it. I heard the other guy who had apparently been at a course with him, doing a course, and he had seemingly said that he had remembered Bryan as this kind of chubby, strange, fat kid. But then when you looked at the dates of it, that would have been after Bryan had lost his weight. So again, that didn't really make sense. We've got people who talk about Bryan, you know, being odd, but then when they talk about why he's odd, they say about how he's overly chatty and he's hard to get away from. And I just think, that's not odd. I know people like that. You know, I've got people who I will actively avoid because I know that if I get into a conversation with them, I'm likely not going to be able to get away from them. And I've not seen anything and anyone come forward with credible stories that would make you think that's a red flag. That right there is a red flag. The only thing that I kind of half would class as a red flag is what his interest was in. And I asked myself whether that could have given him access to finding someone who was able to do a crime like this. You know, we've seen Bryan Kohberger, and I know I touched on earlier that I don't believe that Bryan Kohberger was involved in this, but equally, we don't know. We're not 100% sure. There are pictures that show where somebody has said that they miss Brent, and there is a picture of a machete stuck in a table. You may have seen it, and a picture of Bryan Kohberger within that photograph. He was ex-military. He would have been skilled in the art of self-defense and aggression. And, you know, it's that then makes you look at the crime itself and the time constraint thereof. Because what we're trying to do, we're trying to accept that Dylan Mortensen didn't really hear anything. There was nothing to hear. Okay? So then we're supposed to believe that someone entered this house and within minutes managed to do what they did in that home silently and swiftly to deliver injuries that were sufficient and swift enough to cease that person screaming out, shouting out, calling for help. We've got a camera that was on an adjacent building that picks up muffled speaking and a thud, but that doesn't seem to say about picking up screams. We've heard about the recording where there was a scream, but that video was deemed to be a fraud, a fake, a fictitious thing that was made by another YouTube channel. So again, did this person go into this house and do these acts, these heinous acts, with quite an amount of skill? That then questions whether Bryan Kohberger had indeed done this before, if he is indeed the guy. And we now hear that law enforcement are indeed looking at court cases that have gone cold, and to see whether his name or there's anything that has cropped up that could point to Bryan Kohberger being involved. And currently there is nothing. They can't find anything. He has no prior dealings with the police, and the only one that they've been able to find was over his bicycle, where he's called them and asked for help. They've helped him, and he's thanked them for it. So I don't know what to say about it. And when I think about this house and what happened that night, it raises alarm bells to me. There's little elements of it that raises alarm bells, and that is, if this was done silently, swiftly, in that manner, then are we looking at someone who is indeed very skilled? And would that person who is that skilled then make the mistakes that we are led to believe that Bryan Kohberger did indeed make? Could someone be almost like an assassin, but then make fundamental errors? Is that what we're saying? A stupid assassin? Who knows? Or is there more to this? And is someone else being protected? There is people who are questioning why Dylan did indeed take that long to make that call, and they are now saying that is it potentially that she had to speak to someone else prior to deciding what to do? People have referred to them as handlers. This Greek, the sorority and fraternity situation, are there people within that who says contact us before you contact anyone, and we will deal with it. We will decide how to deal with this situation and how it's going to play out. And was that 8-hour delay in fact a period of speaking and discussions to say what we was going to say is going to be how this went down. We're also still unsure whether the front door was left open or not. That is an important factor, because I would say if that front door was left open, then that was left open in the hope that someone else would come in and discover the scene inside that house. But I will leave you with this thought. We spoke yesterday briefly on Ethan Chapin and the fact that upon approach to that room, it was in fact Xana who was seen first. And people quite rightly said, look, where you are attacked may not be where you end up. Could it be that there was noises that was enough to rouse Dylan? He's left his room. He has gone to have a look. And then I think to myself, if it's been enough for him to rouse and he has come out to have a look, has Dylan also come out to have a look at the same time? Has Bryan Kohberger then seen Ethan, and followed him back to the room? And has the injury that we hear Ethan sustained been caused from behind? And then he has been pushed into the room, and that is when he's then gone after Xana. And then I think to myself, right, so if that's the case, then surely Xana would have at least screamed. She would have made a noise. So then I question, well, why wasn't that picked up on the camera? Why didn't she make a noise? If you go to tickle a female, they are likely to scream out because they anticipate what's going to happen. If they see a spider, they screech out. But apparently, if someone is running towards them or coming towards them or attacking someone they love, there is no noise, there is silence. Something just doesn't sit right here. Now, Bryan Kohberger himself has said he is looking forward to being exonerated. What did he mean by that? Let me know what you think. And I'll catch you all in the next one.